So, after the Holder hearing, Rand Paul took to the Senate floor and he proceeded to filibuster the nomination of John Brennan to head the CIA. And let me be clear, he did not do a silent hold. He actually stood there and did a talking filibuster to draw attention to and demand answers from the Obama administration on its targeted killing program. For almost 13 hours, Rand Paul filibustered. And while we've talked about filibuster reform a ton on this show, and while I do think the filibuster does actually need to be reformed, what Rand Paul did is precisely what the filibuster is for. I think the type of filibuster that Rand Paul did is great. I think that's great. Actually getting on the Senate floor, standing there, defending your views, not a silent filibuster, but an actual Mr. Smith goes to Washington type of filibuster. I am totally for that. I think that actually should be preserved. But just not the sort of every single solitary vote needs 60 votes, and if we say we don't have 60 votes, we're just going to let the bill die in committee. That's what I'm against. And I want to say right off the bat here when we're talking about this, as someone who personally does not like Rand Paul, and I don't. Rand Paul, let's be clear, Rand Paul is anti-women. He wants to ban all abortions. He wants to ban birthright citizenship in the United States because he's so afraid of anchor babies or whatever the hell. Hey, look, despite all of that, I think Rand Paul filibustering the Brennan nomination to draw attention to unchecked secret presidential assassination power, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful, and I support him for doing that. Even more so, it makes me personally sad that it wasn't a progressive who was up there actually doing the filibustering. Why? Why wasn't a progressive up there doing the filibustering? Why? And when Rand Paul actually stopped after 13 hours of filibustering, why didn't a progressive take his place? Why didn't a progressive stand up and keep it going? Why isn't this important enough? Isn't the president saying he can assassinate American citizens, isn't that important enough to make the DC grind to a halt? I certainly think it does. And while it really got to me, what got to me was seeing Democrats and people who claim to be progressive or liberal. What really got to me is watching them make fun of Rand Paul for this filibuster, be it on Twitter, be it on Facebook, mocking him for wanting answers to secret assassination power. And look, again, I want to be clear. I completely disagree with the libertarian political outlook. I've said this many times on the show before, though. There are areas that progressives and libertarians agree, like drones, like assassination power, like civil liberties. Why can't we say, yes, Rand Paul is horrible on women's rights, but he is absolutely correct on this? Why can't we say that? Isn't that what our system of government is actually supposed to be? We may not agree with everything someone says, but when they're standing up and doing the right thing, why are we mocking them for that? I don't get that. I just don't get it at all. It's just, again, this tribal party junk that I'm so sick of. And look, I do get that it is important not to become all starry-eyed and googly-eyed and forget the total picture when it comes to someone like Rand Paul. But let me ask you something. Let me ask you a legitimate question here. For those of you out there who are willing to 100% dismiss every single solitary thing that Rand Paul says or does because of his correctly and admittedly horrible stances on a ton of other issues, again, be it women's rights, immigrants' rights, all of that, which is, again, absolutely true. If you 100% dismiss him on that, are you 100% dismissing Barack Obama for drones? Are you 100% dismissing Barack Obama for assassinations, for not prosecuting Wall Street? Why are you giving Barack Obama a pass on things that are repugnant, that you hate, but you're not giving Rand Paul. The last point I want to make on this, when I was watching the filibuster and the response to it, I had a thought. After the bailout of Wall Street, where we bailed out Wall Street and sold out Main Street, after that, people were upset. People were angry. People were hurting, and they were rightfully so. At that moment in time, instead of the Democratic Party and Democrats, the air quotes, traditional defenders of the middle class, instead of Democrats using the power of economic populism at the time to push for and fight for economic justice for all Americans, to jail the Wall Street people who caused the crash, and to bail out Main Street, to bail out Americans who would lose their homes due to the crimes of bankers who are still losing their homes due to the crash, Democrats were largely silent. They were. And in that void, in that silent void of the lack of economic populism talk from the left, the Tea Party emerged. That's where they came from. People who were rightfully angry and hurting had nowhere to go. And so they went to the Tea Party. The Tea Party, who ultimately advocates economic policies that will harm the majority of American workers and citizens. But you can't deny the Tea Party funneled that anger. And, granted, they had a lot of help. They had billionaire rich white donors. They had AstroTurf. All of that is absolutely true. But it happened. It actually happened. Immediately following the biggest economic crash since the Great Depression, Democrats ceded economic populism to the bloody Tea Party. And I can't help but think, watching Rand Paul filibuster, I can't help but think that they might have just done the exact same thing when it comes to civil liberties. Why wasn't it a progressive doing the filibustering? We'll be right back.